In the dead of night, a screeching crash shattered Julian Croft's world, leaving the 32-year-old tech millionaire paralyzed and alone in his shadowy mansion, a prison of wealth and despair. For 10 years, he's walled himself off from hope, haunted by fragmented memories of that fateful accident. But on a sun-drenched morning, a soft knock echoes through the silence. A wide-eyed 6-year-old girl named Lily stands at his door, asking for scraps and offering an impossible miracle. As her innocent touch sparks a forgotten warmth in his lifeless legs, Julian's frozen heart begins to thaw. If you're tuning in from across the globe, smash that subscribe button, share with a friend, and stick around. What buried betrayal will this miracle unearth? Will faith truly conquer the shadows? You won't want to miss how one child's light exposes a decade of darkness. In the suffocating grip of a nightmare, Julian Croft relived the crash that had stolen his life. Tires screeched like banshees on a rain-slicked highway. Headlights pierced the darkness like accusing eyes, and a voice, familiar yet distorted, argued fiercely in the chaos. "You're ruining everything," it snarled before a violent shove sent him hurtling into oblivion. He awoke gasping, sweat-soaked sheets twisted around his useless legs, the echo of that voice lingering like a ghost in his mind. At 32, Julian Croft was a shadow of the tech wonderkin who'd once commanded boardrooms and coded empires. A decade ago, that accident had shattered his spine, turning his body into a cage and his mansion into a tomb. The sprawling estate on the city's outskirts was a monument to his former glory. Sleek glass walls that reflected the world he no longer inhabited, marble floors that mocked his wheelchair's silent glide, and vast rooms filled with gadgets he'd invented but could no longer fully enjoy. Julian's company, Croft Dynamics, had revolutionized software for millions, but success felt hollow now. Friends had drifted away like autumn leaves, first with pitying visits, then excuses, finally silence. His mother Beatrice called sporadically, her voice laced with disappointment rather than warmth. Even Adrian Thorne, his loyal business partner and closest confidant, seemed more like a distant echo than a true ally these days. Julian wheeled himself to the floor-to-ceiling window of his study, staring out at the sun-drenched garden below. Golden rays danced on dew-kissed lawns, birds chirped melodies of freedom, but to him it was all a cruel taunt. "What's the point?" he muttered to the empty room, his reflection in the glass a gaunt figure with sharp features softened only by exhaustion. The nightmares had worsened lately, fragments of memory teasing him, hints of betrayal in that arguing voice. Was it just his mind playing tricks, or had something sinister lurked behind the accident? He pushed the thought away, as he always did, retreating into the numb routine of his days, scrolling through old emails, ignoring physical therapy reminders, and letting the world fade. A sharp buzz shattered the quiet, the intercom from the front gate. Julian's pulse quickened with irritation. No one visited unannounced. Deliveries were handled by staff, and intruders were a myth in this gated enclave. But there, framed in the camera's unblinking eye, stood a small girl, no older than 6, her light curls tousled by the breeze. She wore a faded sundress that hung loosely on her tiny frame, and her bare feet shifted impatiently on the sun-warmed pavement. Who was she? A neighbor's child? Julian's mind raced. "Agnes," he called out, his voice echoing through the intercom to the housekeeper. "Handle this. Some kid at the gate." But Agnes was in the kitchen, humming an old tune as she prepared his untouched breakfast. Julian sighed, curiosity overriding his annoyance. He activated the gate camera's audio. "What do you want?" he asked gruffly, his tone sharper than intended. The girl looked up, her wide blue eyes locking onto the camera lens as if she could see straight through to him. "Mister, I'm Lily. Can I have some leftovers? My mom has to work real early, and we're kind of hungry." Her voice was soft, polite, laced with an innocence that pierced the air like a ray of sunlight through storm clouds. Leftovers? In this neighborhood of manicured lawns and luxury cars? Julian's mind raced. She didn't seem like a beggar. Too clean, too earnest. Perhaps a prank, or worse, a scam. He hesitated, fingers hovering over the button to dismiss her, but something in her gaze held him captive, a spark of unfiltered hope that contrasted sharply with his own despair. Fine, he grumbled, signaling Agnes to prepare a box. Minutes later, the gate creaked open, and Lily skipped forward, her small hands clutching the package like a treasure. She paused at the front door, which Julian remotely unlocked, wheeling himself into the foyer to meet her. Up close, she was even smaller, her fair skin glowing under the morning light filtering through the skylights. "Thank you, mister," she said, beaming a gap-toothed smile that lit up the dim hallway. Julian nodded curtly, ready to send her away, but she didn't budge. Instead, her eyes drifted to his wheelchair, then to his legs, draped lifelessly beneath a blanket. No pity in her stare, just curiosity. "Hey, why can't you walk? Did you hurt yourself?" The question hit like a punch. People avoided mentioning his paralysis, tiptoeing around it with awkward sympathy. But this child barreled right in. "An accident," Julian replied tersely, his voice a low rumble. "A long time ago. Doctors say I'll never walk again." Lily tilted her head, pondering this as if it were a puzzle. "My mom says miracles happen if you believe hard enough. I can make you walk again. Want to trade? Your leftovers for a miracle?" Julian barked a laugh, bitter and hollow, echoing off the sterile walls. A miracle? From a 6-year-old? It was absurd, the stuff of fairy tales he'd long outgrown. Yet in that moment, the sunlight streaming through the open door bathed her in a golden halo, and the warmth of the morning air stirred something dormant in his chest. A flicker of what? Hope? Ridiculous. "Sure, kid," he said sarcastically, waving her off. "If you can pull off a miracle, I'll believe in anything." Undeterred, Lily set the box down and stepped closer, her tiny hand reaching out tentatively. "Okay, let me try." Before he could protest, her palm pressed gently against his knee. Julian tensed, expecting nothing. But then a strange sensation bloomed. Warmth, like sunlight seeping into frozen earth, radiated from her touch. It wasn't pain, nor numbness. It was alive. A subtle tingle, faint as a whisper, coursed through nerves he'd thought dead. His eyes widened, breath-catching. Was this real, or just his desperate mind conjuring illusions? Lily pulled back, grinning triumphantly. "See? The sun's energy. It'll work, I promise. Can I come back tomorrow?" Julian stared at her, heart pounding, the warmth lingering like an unspoken promise. As she skipped away, box in hand, he wheeled back to the window, the morning sun now feeling less like a mockery and more like an invitation. But in the recesses of his mind, that nightmare voice returned. "You're ruining everything." What if this miracle unearthed more than just feeling in his legs? What secrets lie buried in the shadows of his past? The morning after Lily's unexpected visit dawned with an unusual clarity, the sun casting long shadows across Julian Croft's study as if mocking the turmoil in his mind. He hadn't slept well, replaying that fleeting warmth in his knee like a loop of code he couldn't debug. It had to be imagination, a desperate hallucination born from years of isolation. Yet as he wheeled to the kitchen for his ritual coffee, his fingers absent-mindedly traced the spot where her tiny hand had pressed. Agnes bustled about, her graying hair tied back in a neat bun, shooting him a curious glance. "You seem different today, sir. Less brooding." Julian dismissed her with a grunt, but inside, questions swirled. Who was this girl, really? And why had her touch stirred something he'd long buried? The nightmares had returned with vengeance that night, the crash replayed in vivid fragments, the arguing voice sharper now, laced with accusation. "You think you can cut me out?" it hissed before the shove and the screech of metal. Julian shook his head, forcing the memory down. It was just trauma resurfacing, nothing more. By mid-morning, the intercom buzzed again. Julian's heart skipped, a mix of irritation and inexplicable anticipation. On the screen, there she was, Lily clutching a handful of wildflowers, her sundress fluttering in the breeze. He hesitated, then opened the gate. She bounded up the steps like a sprite from a forgotten fairy tale, thrusting the blooms toward him. "For you, mister. They soak up the sun, just like my miracle energy." Julian accepted them awkwardly, the petals soft against his palm. "Call me Julian, and thanks, but about yesterday." Before he could finish, Lily plopped down on the foyer rug, her eyes wide with stories. At school, we learned about seeds. You plant them, give them sun, and they grow big. Your legs are like that, sleepy seeds. I can wake them up. She reached out again, her hand hovering over his knee. Julian tensed, ready to pull away, but curiosity won. As her palm connected, the warmth returned. Stronger this time, a gentle pulse that radiated upward, coaxing a faint twitch from muscles dormant for a decade. His breath caught, eyes widening in disbelief. It wasn't pain, but life, a subtle coiling of sensation, like a long-forgotten melody stirring in his veins. "What? How?" he whispered, staring at her as if she'd conjured fire from thin air. Lily giggled, unfazed. "Told you. Energy from the sun and a little faith. My mom says if you believe, anything can happen. Want to hear about my dream last night? I flew like a bird." For the next half hour, Julian listened, entranced as she spun tales of schoolyard adventures and imaginary worlds. Her laughter echoed through the empty halls, a sound foreign yet soothing. Agnes watched from the doorway, her expression a mask of polite neutrality. But Julian caught the flicker of unease in her eyes. When Lily finally left, promising to return tomorrow, Julian sat in stunned silence, flexing his toes experimentally. The twitch was real, faint but undeniable. For the first time in years, a seed of hope took root in his barren heart. The days blurred into a routine that felt almost magical. Each morning, Lily arrived like clockwork, her visits evolving into playful sessions. She'd bring more flowers, tell jokes that coaxed reluctant smiles from Julian, and insist on her therapy, placing her hands on his knees while chanting made-up spells about sunlight and strength. The sensations grew, from tingles to subtle spasms, his legs responding as if awakening from a long slumber. In quiet moments, Julian marveled at it, even daring to consult his old medical files. The doctors had been adamant, permanent damage. Yet here he was, feeling again. But the nightmares intensified too, the arguing voice crystallizing into something familiar. Adrian's timbre, laced with rage over a business deal gone sour. "You're greedy, Julian. Taking it all," it roared in one dream before the drunken shove. Julian woke, sweating, dismissing it as paranoia. Adrian Thorne had been his rock, the partner who'd taken over Croft Dynamics after the accident, steering it to new heights while Julian faded into obscurity. They spoke weekly, Adrian's calls a lifeline of updates and encouragement. That afternoon, as if summoned by his thoughts, the phone rang. Adrian's voice boomed through the speaker, warm and concerned. "Julian, old friend, how's the fortress holding up? Agnes mentioned you've had a visitor. A little girl?" Julian paused, surprised Agnes had shared that. "Yeah, Lily. She's harmless. Just a kid from nearby. Asked for leftovers, but she's got this wild idea she can help me walk." A beat of silence, then Adrian chuckled, though it sounded forced. "Walk? Come on, Julian. You're in a vulnerable spot. People prey on that, especially the desperate ones. What's her angle? Family and debt? Sounds like a setup to me." Julian bristled, defensive. "It's not like that. She's genuine. And something's happening. I felt a twitch today." Adrian's tone shifted, laced with worry. "Twitch? Buddy, that's probably psychosomatic. Don't let hope cloud your judgment. The world's full of opportunists," he said with a sigh that masked deeper intent. "Promise me you'll be careful. I've got your back, always." The call ended, leaving Julian unsettled. Adrian's words gnawed at him, planting seeds of doubt amid the budding hope. Was Lily too good to be true? That evening, as he reviewed company reports Adrian had sent, profits soaring under his stewardship, Julian couldn't shake the nightmare's echo. Adrian had been there that night, hadn't he? Driving them home from a heated meeting. The next morning's visit from Lily was interrupted by an unannounced arrival. Beatrice Croft, Julian's mother, sweeping into the foyer like a storm in pearls and designer silk. Her sharp eyes, framed by perfectly coiffed silver hair, widened at the sight of Lily perched on the rug, hands on Julian's knee mid-therapy. "What in heaven's name is this?" Beatrice demanded, her voice a low whip crack of disapproval. Lily froze, eyes darting to Julian. "Mother, this is Lily. She's..." Helping me, Julian said evenly, though his pulse raced. Beatrice's gaze raked over the girl, lips pursing. Helping? By what? Playing pretend. Julian, you're a Croft. We don't entertain street children in our home. Think of the family name. She softened momentarily, her eyes misting as she recalled Julian as a boy, running through gardens full of promise before the accident shattered it all. I only want what's best for you, darling. This, this could tarnish everything. Julian defended Lily, but Beatrice's words lingered like poison, amplifying Adrian's warnings. As she left, insisting he end this nonsense, Julian wheeled to the window, watching Lily skip away with her flowers. The warmth in his legs persisted, a quiet rebellion against doubt. But that night the phone rang anonymously, a neighbor's voice, laced with malice. Keep that riffraff away or there'll be trouble. Julian hung up, heart pounding. Was this hope a gift or a gateway to deeper shadows? As sleep claimed him, the nightmare voice returned, clearer than ever. Adrian's, full of fury. The nightmare clung to Julian like a shroud as dawn broke. The accusing voice, Adrian's unmistakably now, fading into the gray light filtering through his bedroom curtains. You're cutting me out, it had thundered, the shove feeling all too real, jolting him awake with a gasp. He rubbed his temples, dismissing it once more as the ravings of a fractured mind. But the anonymous call from last night lingered too, its venomous whisper a fresh wound. Keep that riffraff away. Who was behind it? A nosy neighbor, stirred by Beatrice's gossip, or something more calculated? Downstairs, Agnes prepared breakfast with her usual efficiency, but Julian noticed her averted eyes, the subtle tension in her movements. She'd served the Croft family for over 2 decades, a steadfast presence through his father's death and his own downfall. Yet lately her loyalty felt strained, colored by the same unease Beatrice had voiced. Sir, about that child, Agnes began hesitantly, setting down his tray. Mrs. Croft mentioned concerns. Perhaps it's unwise. Enough, Julian cut her off, sharper than intended. Lily's harmless. She's helping. He didn't elaborate. The twitches in his legs were a secret he guarded like a fragile flame. As if on cue, the intercom buzzed. Lily, right on time. Her cheerful wave on the screen a balm against the morning's chill. She arrived with a bundle of daisies and a mischievous grin, launching into her therapy without preamble. Today we're playing hopscotch, but in your head first, imagine jumping over puddles of clouds. Julian chuckled despite himself, her enthusiasm infectious. As she placed her hands on his knees, chanting about sun jumps, the warmth surged again, stronger, coaxing a voluntary flex in his calf. It was no illusion. His body was responding, defying the doctor's grim prophecies. For a moment, the invisible walls of his prison cracked, hope seeping through like sunlight on cracked earth. But outside those walls, shadows gathered. Unbeknownst to Julian, Adrian Thorne paced his sleek downtown office, phone in hand, weaving a web of whispers. He'd always been the charmer, the one who closed deals with a smile while hiding daggers. Hearing from Beatrice about the street child invading Julian's sanctuary, Adrian saw an opportunity, not just to protect his friend, but to safeguard his own secrets. If Julian's memories resurfaced, no, that couldn't happen. He dialed Agnes, his voice honeyed with concern. Agnes, dear, how's our boy holding up? That mother, Clara, was it? Sounds like a gold digger to me. Families like hers prey on vulnerability. You must watch the estate closely. Report anything odd, for Julian's sake. Agnes hesitated, her hand trembling on the receiver in the kitchen pantry. She'd once lost a job to class prejudice, a young maid dismissed by a haughty employer for her humble roots. The irony stung, but Adrian's words preyed on her fears. The Croft legacy was sacred. Outsiders threatened it. I'll keep an eye, Mr. Thorne, she murmured, guilt twisting in her gut. That afternoon she slipped him details. Lily's daily visits, the miracle claims, even Clara's weary figure glimpsed dropping her off. Adrian nodded inwardly, perfect fodder for rumors. The backlash erupted subtly at first, a ripple in the affluent neighborhood's placid surface. Whispers spread like wildfire on local social media groups. Croft's letting beggars in? What's next? Handouts at the gates? A particularly vicious post, anonymously shared but traced back to Adrian's subtle nudges, painted Lily as a scheming urchin and Clara as a manipulative opportunist. By evening, the first overt strike came. A rock hurled through the estate's side window, shattering glass with a crash that echoed Julian's nightmares. He wheeled to the scene, heart pounding, finding a scrawled note amid the shards. "Get out, trash!" Lily and Clara felt the sting firsthand. As Clara walked her daughter home that day, neighbors stared from manicured lawns, murmurs following like shadows. "Poor Croft, blinded by pity," one woman hissed to another. Clara clutched Lily's hand tighter, her face a mask of resolve. She'd endured worse. Single motherhood in a rundown apartment, scraping by on multiple jobs after being swindled by a wealthy ex who promised the world and left her in ruins. "Ignore them, baby," she whispered to Lily, who looked up with wide, confused eyes. "We're just being kind." Back at the mansion, Julian confronted the broken window, rage simmering beneath his calm facade. Agnes hovered, wringing her hands. "Sir, perhaps it's a sign. That child—" "No!" Julian snapped, wheeling away. The incident crystallized his resolve. Lily's therapies weren't just games. They were resurrecting him. And in her innocent eyes, he saw a mirror to his own lost vitality. That night, as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the garden, he made his decision. He called Clara, her number gleaned from Lily's chatter, and invited her over. She arrived wary, her worn coat draped over work clothes, Lily trailing behind with fresh-picked weeds. "Mr. Croft, what's this about?" Clara asked, her voice steady but guarded. Julian met her gaze, vulnerability cracking his armor. "Your daughter. She's changing everything. I feel again, really feel. But the world out there, it's turning ugly. Stay here, both of you. The mansion's too big for one broken man. Help me manage it and let Lily keep her miracles." Clara's eyes flashed with surprise, then suspicion. "Why us? You don't know me. I've been burned before. A rich man like you, promising safety, then vanishing when it suited him." Her voice cracked, revealing scars from that betrayal. A lover who'd used her, then discarded her like yesterday's news, leaving her pregnant and penniless. Julian nodded, empathy softening his features. "I get it. Trust is earned. But Lily, she's given me hope when I had none. This isn't charity. It's a partnership. Stay, and we'll face the whispers together." Lily tugged her mother's sleeve. "Please, Mom. Julian's nice, and his house has a big yard for real hopscotch." Clara hesitated, weighing the risks against the warmth in her daughter's eyes. Finally, she nodded. "All right, but if anything feels off, we're gone." As they left to pack, Julian felt a surge of purpose, the warmth in his legs mirroring the one in his chest. But as night fell, his phone chimed. A text from an unknown number. "Don't be fooled, Julian. She's after your fortune. Proof incoming." A friend. Attached was a grainy photo of Clara from years ago, doctored to look suspicious. Adrian's handiwork, though Julian didn't know it yet. Doubt crept back, an invisible wall rising higher. Was this family a beacon or a trap waiting to spring? The anonymous text glowed ominously on Julian's phone screen, the doctored photo of Clara staring back like an accusation from the shadows. Her face, younger and more vulnerable, was superimposed over a news clipping about a fraud case, cleverly manipulated, but convincing enough to plant a seed of unease. "Proof incoming," it read, signed a friend. Julian's fingers hovered over the delete button, but doubt had already taken root, twisting like vines around the fragile hope Lily had sown. Who was this friend? A concerned neighbor or someone closer, pulling strings from afar? He glanced toward the guest wing where Clara and Lily now settled, their laughter faintly echoing down the hall, a sound that warmed him, yet now carried an undercurrent of suspicion. Julian's stomach churned as he scanned the pages. The doctored photo from the text matched one here. "This can't be," he muttered, but doubt flooded in like a tide. Adrian's concern seemed genuine. his hand on Julian's shoulder a familiar anchor. I'm just looking out for you, like always. After the accident, I couldn't let you get hurt again. The word accident hung heavy, triggering another flash. Adrian's hand shoving him, the car spinning. Julian shook it off, self-doubt gnawing. I need time to think. Adrian left with a sympathetic nod, but triumph gleamed in his eyes as he drove away. Back in the mansion, Julian watched Clara and Lily from afar. Clara teaching her daughter to arrange flowers, their bond unbreakable. Lily's laughter cut through his turmoil, a reminder of the warmth she'd ignited. Yet Adrian's proof loomed like a storm cloud. Was this family a salvation or a snare? That night, as he lay staring at the ceiling, the echoes of the past grew louder. The crash, the voice, the betrayal. Hope flickered, but so did fear. What if embracing this miracle unearthed a nightmare he'd long suppressed? The echoes of the past reverberated through Julian's sleepless night, the crash's cacophony blending with Adrian's fabricated proof into a symphony of suspicion. He stared at the folder on his desk, the forged documents accusing Clara of deceit glaring back like eyes from the abyss. Her story of betrayal by a wealthy ex, now twisted in his mind. Had she spun it to ensnare him? Yet Lily's touch lingered too, the warmth in his legs a tangible anchor amid the storm. By dawn, doubt had festered into a wound, tearing him between the miracle unfolding and the shadows closing in. Julian wheeled through the mansion's hushed corridors, the morning light filtering through like fractured promises. Clara was already up, organizing the pantry with quiet efficiency, her presence a steadying force in the chaos. Lily sat at the kitchen table, crayons in hand, sketching Julian with legs that jumped over mountains. "Look, you're flying today," she beamed, holding up the drawing. Julian forced a smile, but his eyes darted to Clara. "Beautiful, kid. Keep believing." As Lily scampered off to the garden for her daily flower hunt, Julian confronted Clara in the sun-dappled kitchen. "We need to talk," he said, voice low and edged with tension. He slid the folder toward her. "Adrian showed me this. Your past, scams, manipulations. Is it true?" Clara's face paled, her hands freezing mid-motion. "What? No, Julian, that's not me. My ex, he ruined me, but I never—" She flipped through the pages, eyes widening in horror. "These are lies. Doctored. Who would do this?" Hurt flashed in her gaze, raw and unguarded. "After everything I shared, you believe this over us?" Julian's heart clenched, torn. Lily's innocence pulled him one way, Adrian's loyalty the other. "I want to trust you, but after the accident, people change, betray." The word hung heavy, echoing his nightmares. The shove, Adrian's voice snarling about profits. Was this another betrayal in disguise? Clara straightened, fire igniting in her eyes. "Trust is earned, Julian. Lily's given you more than anyone. Life in those legs. If you can't see that—" She turned away but paused at the pantry door, voices murmuring from within. Agnes's hushed tone. "Yes, Mr. Thorne. The mother is digging into the finances now, whispering to him about the company. And the girl, her miracles are just a distraction. You'll handle it? For the family's sake?" Clara froze, blood draining from her face. She burst into the pantry, Julian wheeling after her in confusion. Agnes startled, dropping the phone. Adrian's voice crackling briefly before she hung up. "What are you doing?" Clara demanded, voice trembling with fury. Agnes's face hardened, years of suppressed resentment surfacing. "Protecting this house. From the likes of you. Poor folks sniffing around wealth. Mr. Thorne warned me. You're after the estate. I've seen it before. Lost my first job to a family like yours. Accused of theft when it was their lies. I won't let it happen here." The revelation hit Julian like a thunderclap. Agnes, his steadfast guardian through the darkest years, bandaging wounds both physical and emotional, now exposed as a spy. "Agnes, you?" he whispered, betrayal slicing deep. Memories flooded. Her quiet support after the accident, her disdain for outsiders veiled as concern, and Adrian, pulling the strings, feeding on her fears. Clara rounded on Agnes, eyes blazing. You've been poisoning him against us? Spreading lies to that snake thorn? Lily's a child. She's healing him, and you twist it into a scheme? Her voice cracked, the weight of past betrayals crashing down. I've fought tooth and nail for my daughter, scraping by after being left for dead by a man like him. We came here with open hearts, and this is what we get? Agnes faltered, guilt flickering in her lined face. I, I thought I was loyal. To the Crofts. But you. She glanced at Julian, tears welling. Sir, I've cared for you since the crash. Changed your bandages when no one else would. But them, they don't belong. Julian's world tilted, the dagger of betrayal twisting in his back. Agnes, the woman who'd been like a second mother, now aligned with the very shadows haunting his dreams. And Adrian, the friend who'd steered the company while Julian withered, was exposed as the puppeteer. The shove in his nightmares felt closer, Adrian's greed the motive. Loyalty, Julian's voice thundered, raw with pain. This isn't loyalty, it's poison. You've betrayed me, Agnes. For what? Fear? Prejudice? The confrontation escalated, voices rising like a storm. Clara stood firm, defending her daughter. Lily's given him hope. You've only fed doubt. Agnes retorted, her own scars bared. I was tossed aside once for being low class. I won't watch it happen again. Julian, caught in the crossfire, felt the weight of choice crushing him. Agnes had been his anchor for a decade, nursing him through despair, shielding him from the world's pity. Yet Clara and Lily had reignited his soul, their warmth piercing the numbness. Finally, resolve hardened in his chest. Agnes, he said, voice steady despite the tremor. Thank you for the years, but I can't tolerate this. Betrayal wrapped in loyalty. You're fired. Pack your things. The words hung like a guillotine, Agnes's face crumpling in shock and sorrow. She nodded silently, whispering, I thought I was saving you, before retreating upstairs. Clara touched his arm, gratitude and concern mingling in her eyes. You chose us. Thank you. But Julian's mind raced. Adrian's role now crystal clear, the proof a smokescreen. As evening fell, his phone buzzed. An email from Adrian. Heard about Agnes. Tragic. But you're in over your head, friend. If you don't end this farce, I'll have to step in, legally, for your own good. The threat loomed, a dagger poised. Julian deleted it, but the shadows deepened. With Agnes gone, the real enemy revealed. What storm would Adrian unleash next? The threatening email from Adrian hung over Julian like a storm cloud, its words searing into his mind as the mansion settled into an uneasy quiet. If you don't end this farce, I'll have to step in, legally, for your own good. The betrayal stung deeper than Agnes's departure. Her quiet exit that afternoon, leaving a void filled only by echoes of slammed doors and muffled sobs. Julian stared at the screen, the warmth in his legs, a gift from Lily's unwavering faith, now warring with the chill of impending war. Adrian, the friend who'd profited from his downfall, was no longer hiding in shadows. He was charging forward, dagger drawn. Clara found him in the study, her face etched with worry. What now? She asked, glancing at the email he'd shown her. Lily played nearby, oblivious, her crayons sketching a family where everyone walked hand in hand. He's coming for it all, Julian replied, voice grim. Guardianship over my assets, claiming I'm unfit, manipulated by you? The irony twisted like a knife. The man who'd possibly engineered his paralysis now positioning himself as savior. Nightmares flashed, Adrian's shove, the crash. But Julian pushed them down. Evidence was scant, doubt his only weapon. The lawsuit landed like a bombshell 2 days later, served by a stern process server at the gate. Adrian Thorne versus Julian Croft, petition for conservatorship, alleging mental incompetence due to isolation and undue influence from opportunistic interlopers. The documents painted a damning picture. Forged medical notes suggesting Julian's delusions of recovery, anonymous testimonies, likely from stirred neighbors, about Clara's scheming, and financial irregularities hinting at embezzlement. Media caught wind quickly, headlines screaming, "Tech mogul duped by miracle child? Partner seeks control." Social media erupted, a torrent of vitriol. Gold diggers preying on the vulnerable. Posts flooded in, some with photos of Lily at the gate, twisted into memes of mockery. The mansion became a fortress under siege. Reporters camped outside, drones buzzing overhead for glimpses. Clara shielded Lily, her past scars reopening as anonymous calls harassed her. "Leave before we make you." Lily, sensing the tension, clung tighter during therapy sessions. "Why are people mad?" she asked, her hands on Julian's knees sparking stronger flexes now, a full knee lift that made him gasp in triumph. "Because they don't believe in miracles," Julian replied, hugging her. But inside, fear gnawed. Adrian's legal team was ruthless, backed by Croft Dynamics resources he'd commandeered. Beatrice Croft's arrival shattered the isolation like a thunderclap. She swept in unannounced, her elegant coat billowing, face a mask of fury and regret. Julian braced for another lecture, but she surprised him. "That snakethorn called me, gloating about saving you. But I saw the filings, Julian. The lies. It's him, isn't it? The one pulling strings all along." Julian nodded, vulnerability cracking his facade. "He's been manipulating Agnes, spreading rumors. And the accident. I remember fragments. He was there, Mother. Arguing, shoving." Beatrice's eyes widened, memories flooding her. Adrian as the charming protege she'd once welcomed like a son, stepping in after the crash to help while Julian withered. But now his greed lay bare, eyeing full control of the company, the estate. "I was blind," she admitted, voice trembling. "Prejudiced against that girl and her mother because they weren't us. But watching you these weeks, Lily's brought you back. More than doctors ever did." She recalled Julian's childhood, his first steps in the garden, now mirrored in Lily's miracles. Tears welled as she embraced him, a rare crack in her armored poise. "No more. I'll fight this. For you. For all of us." True to her word, Beatrice mobilized. She hired a top-tier legal team, sharp attorneys who dismantled corporate giants, pouring resources into countering Adrian's assault. "We'll expose him," she vowed, becoming an unlikely ally to Clara. The two women bonded over strategy sessions, Beatrice apologizing for her initial disdain. "I let class blind me, but you're stronger than I ever was." Clara, guarded at first, softened, sharing her own battles. Lily watched, her drawings now including Beatrice as a sun grandma. The courtroom became the arena, a sterile chamber buzzing with tension under fluorescent lights. Adrian sat smugly, flanked by lawyers, his polished exterior hiding the panic of a man cornered. Julian wheeled in, flanked by his team, Clara and Lily at his side, Lily clutching a flower for good luck. Beatrice testified first, her voice steady. "My son was lost for years. This family revived him, not manipulated. Thorns the opportunist, profiting from tragedy." She detailed Adrian's post-accident takeover, subtle financial shifts favoring him. Adrian's side struck back viciously. Witnesses, paid or coerced, claim Julian's delusions. He thinks a child can heal paralysis. Medical experts, cherry-picked, dismissed the recovery as psychosomatic. Clara endured cross-examination, her past dredged up. "Isn't it true you targeted wealthy men before?" She held firm, tears glistening. "I targeted no one. We came for kindness and stayed for family." The pressure mounted, Julian's nightmares bleeding into reality. During a recess, he flexed his legs in the hallway, the strength growing enough for a shaky stand with support. "It's real," he whispered to Lily, who beamed, but Adrian cornered him privately. "Drop this, Julian, or I'll bury you in court. Remember the accident? Accidents happen." The threat ignited fury and clarity. Fragments coalesced. Adrian's greed over shares, the drunken drive, the shove. Julian's team presented early evidence. Discreet investigations, uncovering Agnes's calls, forged docs traced to Adrian's IP. The judge, stern but fair, ordered further hearings. Media frenzy escalated. Public opinion split. Some vilified Clara as a witch. Others hailed Lily as a miracle child. Hate mail arrived, but so did support. flowers from strangers echoing Lily's gifts. Beatrice's transformation sealed the shift. In a pivotal testimony, she denounced Adrian. He was like a son until I saw his true face. Greed, not guardianship. Her words cracked the facade, Adrian's composure slipping. As the session adjourned, Julian felt the tide turning, but tension peaked. The judge demanded proof of recovery next, a physical demonstration. Show us this miracle, Mr. Croft. That night, back in the mansion, Julian practiced in secret, legs trembling but holding. Clara held his hand. We're in this together. Lily whispered, believe like the sun. But as sleep came, nightmares roared. Adrian's shove, the crash. The truth simmered, ready to erupt in court. What would break first, his body or the lies? The judge's demand echoed in Julian's mind like a death knell as the courtroom doors swung shut behind him, the weight of impending judgment pressing down heavier than his wheelchair ever had. Show us this miracle, Mr. Croft, the stern voice had commanded, scheduling the demonstration for the next morning. That night, back in the mansion's dimly lit study, Julian paced in his mind while his body remained frustratingly still. The legal war had drained him, Adrian's smirking presence in court, Beatrice's fierce testimonies, Clara's unyielding support. But the real battle raged within. Nightmares assaulted him relentlessly. The highway slick with rain, Adrian's face contorted in rage, the shove that sealed his fate. You're taking it all, Adrian had screamed, his hand thrusting Julian toward doom. The memories, once fragments, now sharpened into blades, slicing through the fog of a decade. Clara sat beside him, her hand on his, grounding him in the present. You can do this, she whispered, her voice a lifeline. Lily, curled in Beatrice's lap across the room, added her innocent plea. Just believe, like the sun waking up. Beatrice, transformed from icy matriarch to fierce protector, nodded solemnly. We've come this far, son. Show them the truth. Julian flexed his legs under the blanket, stronger now, capable of brief stands with aid. Lily's therapies had woven magic, daily sessions of sunlight chants and flower rituals, her tiny hands igniting nerves long dormant. But tomorrow demanded more, a public resurrection or humiliation. Dawn broke with merciless clarity, the courtroom packed like a coliseum awaiting a gladiator's fall. Reporters crammed the benches, cameras poised. Neighbors who'd once scorned now watched with morbid curiosity. Adrian sat ramrod straight, flanked by lawyers, a veneer of concern masking the predator beneath. Julian entered, wheeled by Clara, Lily clutching his sleeve like a talisman. Beatrice flanked them, her gaze steel. The judge, gavel in hand, nodded gravely. Mr. Croft, the court requires proof of your alleged recovery. Demonstrate or this petition for conservatorship proceeds. The room hushed, air thick with anticipation. Julian's heart thundered, sweat beating on his brow. He positioned himself at the witness stand, gripping the arms of his chair. Clara squeezed his shoulder. Lily whispered, "Sun energy, go!" He closed his eyes, drawing on every session, the warmth blooming from Lily's touch, the twitches evolving into flexes, the hope she'd planted taking root. But as he focused, the tension ignited something deeper, a cascade of suppressed memories flooding like a dam bursting. The highway materialized vividly, the argument escalating over profit shares, Adrian furious at Julian's decision to go solo on a lucrative deal. "You're ruining me," he'd bellowed, alcohol fueling his rage. The swerve, the shove, Adrian yanking him into the driver's seat post-impact, staging the scene to pin blame on Julian's reckless driving. "No one will believe you," Adrian had hissed, fleeing as sirens wailed. 10 years of buried truth erupted, fury surging through Julian's veins like electricity. His eyes snapped open, locking on Adrian. The courtroom blurred, focus narrowing. With a guttural cry, Julian pushed against the chair arms, muscles screaming in protest. Inch by agonizing inch, he rose, trembling, unsteady, but standing. Gasps rippled through the gallery. Cameras flashed like lightning. Adrian's face drained of color, his smugness shattering. But Julian wasn't done. Legs quaking but holding, he lifted a shaking arm, finger jabbing toward his betrayer. "It's you," he roared, voice echoing off the walls. "You caused the accident, the argument, the shove. You switched seats to cover your tracks. For the company, for everything." Pandemonium erupted. The judge banged his gavel furiously. Lawyers leaped to their feet. Adrian bolted upright, protesting wildly. "Lies! Delusions!" But his eyes betrayed terror, the mask crumbling. Bailiffs restrained him as Julian, fueled by adrenaline, took a faltering step forward, then another, Clara rushing to support him. "I remember it all," Julian continued, voice steady now, the courtroom hanging on every word. "The fight over shares, your greed. You left me paralyzed to steal my life." Beatrice wept openly, pride and horror mingling. Lily cheered. "He did it! Miracle!" The judge, stunned, called for order. "This changes everything. Bailiffs, detain Mr. Thorne. We'll adjourn for investigation." Adrian was led away in cuffs, his protests drowned by the chaos. Reporters scrambling, phones buzzing with breaking news. Croft stands and accuses. The fallout was swift, a whirlwind sweeping through media and minds. Investigations unearthed damning evidence. Old dash cam footage recovered from archives, matching Julian's account. Financial trails showing Adrian's post-accident siphoning. Public opinion flipped like a switch. Headlines shifted from duped mogul to hero's resurrection. Support poured in, flowers at the gates, apologies from neighbors who'd once scorned. Clara and Lily became symbols of hope, and their story went viral. Beatrice, in interviews, denounced her blindness. "I let prejudice divide us, no more." Yet amid the triumph, Julian collapsed into Clara's arms outside the courthouse, legs buckling but spirit unbroken. The truth had risen, but scars remained. Adrian's empire crumbled, charges looming, attempted manslaughter, fraud. As they returned home, Julian whispered to Lily, "Your miracle saved more than my legs." But shadows lingered, justice served, yet the emotional battlefield scarred. Healing the family would demand more than standing. It required rebuilding on truth's foundation. The courtroom's chaos faded into a distant roar as Julian sank back into his wheelchair outside the building, the adrenaline of his stand and accusation draining away like sand through fingers. Adrian's arrest had been swift, handcuffs clicking like the final nail in a coffin of deceit. His protests swallowed by the frenzy of flashing cameras and shouting reporters. Investigations moved like lightning. Forensic teams unearthed suppressed evidence from the accident scene. Financial auditors exposed Adrian's embezzlement trails, and witnesses, once silenced by fear, came forward with tales of his manipulations. Croft Dynamics board ousted him within hours, his empire crumbling like a house of cards built on stolen foundations. Charges piled up, manslaughter, fraud, conspiracy. A lifetime behind bars loomed. Julian watched the news unfold from the mansion's study, a mix of vindication and sorrow twisting in his gut. The man he'd called brother had been the architect of his ruin, all for greed. But victory tasted bittersweet, the emotional scars throbbing like fresh wounds. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the garden in hues of gold and crimson, Julian gathered his unlikely family in the living room. Clara sat beside him, her hand in his, a silent pillar of strength forged in the fire of scrutiny. Lily perched on the rug, arranging her ever-present flowers into a crown, her innocence unscathed by the storm. Beatrice paced slowly, her elegant frame softened by humility. The weight of her past prejudices lifted yet lingering like a shadow. "We won," Julian said quietly, his voice hoarse from the day's exertions. "But at what cost? Adrian, he was family once." Beatrice stopped, turning to him with eyes glistening. "He chose his path, son, and we chose ours." She knelt before Lily, placing the flower crown on her head. "This child, your miracle doctor, showed me my blindness. I judged you, Clara, for your roots, fearing you'd tarnish our name. But you've enriched it. Forgiven, old fool?" Clara nodded, pulling Beatrice into an embrace, tears mingling as walls of class and suspicion finally crumbled. "We're family now," Clara whispered, "blood or not." The healing began in earnest. a quiet revolution within the mansion's walls. Days blurred into weeks of recovery. Julian's physical therapy intensified, Lily's sun sessions evolving into joyful games where he'd take halting steps across the garden, her laughter his guiding light. Muscles strengthened, nerves reawakened. Doctors marveled at the unexplained progress, attributing it to a blend of psychology and sheer will. But Julian knew the truth. It was love's alchemy, transforming despair into possibility. The community, once a venomous chorus, shifted like tides under a new moon. Apologies trickled in, first from neighbors who'd hurled stones and slurs, arriving at the gate with baskets of regrets and baked goods. "We were wrong," one woman confessed, eyes downcast. "Fear blinded us." Social media, once a battlefield, bloomed with support. Viral videos of Julian's courtroom stand, hashtags like Rush Miracle Lily trending globally. Schools invited Lily to speak on kindness, and nonprofits lauded Clara's resilience. Even Agnes sent a letter from afar. "I see now my prejudice poisoned me. Forgive, if you can." Julian read it aloud, a pang of loss softening his resolve. "Everyone deserves a second chance," he murmured, echoing the grace Lily had taught him. As spring whispered promises through blooming gardens, the mansion transformed into a haven of laughter and light. Beatrice moved in temporarily, her stern demeanor melting into grandmotherly warmth, teaching Lily chess in the afternoons, sharing stories of Julian's boyhood with Clara over tea. "He was always a dreamer," she'd say, eyes twinkling. "You've given him wings again." Clara thrived, managing the household with grace, her bond with Julian deepening in stolen moments. Quiet walks, him with crutches now, shared sunsets where they'd confess fears and dreams. "You saved me too," she'd admit, "from trusting no one." The climax came on a balmy evening, the garden alive with fireflies dancing like living stars. Julian had planned it meticulously, a simple ceremony to celebrate their victory, inviting those who'd stood by them. Lawyers, a few reformed neighbors, even distant relatives. Tables groaned under feasts, strings of lights twinkling overhead. Lily darted about in a flower-dotted dress, crowning guests with her blooms. Beatrice raised a toast. To truth, to miracles, to family reborn. As the night deepened, Julian led Clara to a secluded bench under an ancient oak, his steps steadier, crutches merely a prop. The fireflies swirled like confetti, the air scented with jasmine. He knelt, slowly, deliberately, before her, pulling a small box from his pocket. The ring caught the light, simple yet radiant, like their love. "Clara," he began, voice thick with emotion, "you and Lily crashed into my world like that fateful night, but you rebuilt it. Not with wealth or power, but with faith, kindness, and a love I thought lost forever. You've seen my darkness, my doubts, and stayed. Will you marry me? Build this foundation with me?" Tears streamed down Clara's face, joy illuminating her features. "Yes," she whispered, pulling him up into an embrace. "1,000 times yes." Lily squealed from the bushes, having spied the moment, rushing in for a group hug. Beatrice watched from afar, wiping her eyes, pride swelling in her chest. The wedding followed weeks later, an intimate affair in the garden. Vows exchanged under blooming arches, Lily as flower girl scattering petals like blessings. Guests, once skeptics, applauded as Julian walked the aisle unaided, his steps firm, a testament to miracles both seen and unseen. Headlines celebrated, from paralysis to promise, Croft's love story. But for Julian, the real triumph was quieter, the family huddling that night, sharing stories under stars. "The true miracle," he said, holding Clara close, "isn't walking again. It's finding courage to trust, to love, to rise from ashes together." As fireflies danced on, the mansion stood not as a tomb, but a beacon. Shadows banished, foundations laid in love, enduring, unbreakable. And so, dear listeners, our journey with Julian, Lily, and Clara draws to a heartfelt close, a testament to the miracles born of faith and love. What emotions stirred within you? Did this tale of redemption and resilience inspire a new perspective on trust or forgiveness? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how this story touched your soul. Thank you for joining me on this emotional adventure. Your presence makes every moment special. Until we meet again for more inspiring tales, keep the light of hope burning bright. Farewell for now.